Good morning. Welcome to BFI Future Film Festival 2025. My name is Ella Townsend. I am the Young Talent Coordinator here at Film Hub Midlands. I manage and oversee BFI Film Academy programme. Today's session is titled Below the Line Crew, which is focusing on the vital role of grip, featuring our brilliant speaker here today, Jordan, who is BFI Film Academy alumni. So this session dives into the world of grip, a key position that that ensures smooth camera operation and dynamic cinematography. Jordan is from Broadway Cinemas BFI Film Academy based in Nottingham, who will share insights on responsibilities, career paths, and on-set problem solving specific to this role. So whether you're an aspiring filmmaker or curious about crew roles, today's session is a chance to learn from Jordan, who's making his own way in the industry. So, yeah. Hi, Jordan.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you taking part in today. Aware that we've got quite a lot to get through in within the next hour and hour and a half. So I was wondering if you're able to introduce a bit about yourself in terms of that your role and what department you work in, but also kind of talking about your experience of BFI Film Academy.
Yes, absolutely. My name is Jordan. I've been working in the industry since 2019, where just after I graduated, and so I've got roughly 5+ years in the industry. You'd think it'd be six, but because of COVID happening literally the year after I started, me and a load of other people missed out a year. So getting started back up in 2021 was definitely interesting. Um, I was a grip trainee from 2019 until just last year officially, and then I qualified with my union and my branch. So I'm now qualified grip, making my way kind of through the landscape of London TV, film, and commercials, and a few music videos. Uh, yeah.
No, it's fine, bro. Thank you so much. Yeah, COVID really did kind of change everything, really, didn't it? Um,
Yeah.
so obviously you took part in the BFI Film Academy program in Nottingham. I was just wondering if you're able to share how maybe it supported your career and like if there were any kind of valuable lessons that you've carried through.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did my regional course, like I think nearly 10 years ago now, uh, which is a long time. It feels like a long time since I started. But yeah, the course was super helpful. It helped us kind of meet industry professionals, understand what a professional working kind of set is all about, and meet up and connect with like other like-minded individuals who also have the same passion for you as film, because there's a difference between, I think, taking a film course in a school and then taking a specific film course as part of the BFI regional thing. Because in school, you kind of just have to do it. Like it's an optional choice for a lot of people. But if you really are serious about getting into film and working in film and kind of approaching that kind of creative space for you where you want to be surrounded by other like-minded individuals, the regional course for me was really good because no one was there by accident. Like no one just signs up on a whim. Like these are people that take it kind of seriously, at least as serious as I hope as I did at the time. The course was really good. It it's super helpful to kind of have on your CV, especially when you're starting out, because other people will see that the name BFI is on there, so you kind of take it as seriously as an industry professional would. Um, and yeah, you kind of when you become a BFI Academy course like alumni, you are able to kind of connect with certain industry professionals and people who can offer you trainee programs and traineeship courses that will help you get onto like larger productions. I was very fortunate in mine because I applied for 2 years. The first year I didn't get it. It is what it is. But then the next year I applied um, on and offer based that came from the BFI directly to work on a feature film. Signed up like I always tried to sign up as soon as I could, and yeah, I was fortunate and lucky to get my placement on a feature film uh, starting like mid 2019.
Cool, thank you. And obviously before 2019, I believe you finished the course in 2014. So I think it's 11 years.
Yeah, I want to say that as
Yeah.
well.
So before before you broke into the industry, like how did you make decisions on your career path, like, finishing film academy? Like what did you do after you finished film academy between 2019?
After I left the film academy and got my certificate and all that, I had was just finishing college at the time as well. So I graduated college and then had my choice of what to do then. And my main choices were move to London to kind of pursue the career in like high-end TV or film that I wanted to do, or stay around Nottingham and try and make it work there. Now, for the kind of work that I do and the level of work that I do, it's hard to find that work anywhere that isn't London, Manchester, or Cardiff, at least within the UK, and find it regularly. So my option was then to move to London. And how was I going to do that? I applied for university. Now, this isn't the case for everyone when it comes to pursuing higher education and whatnot. But for me, I knew I didn't necessarily need university or the qualification from university to get me through, um, to get me a job in film because I think what was more important for me at the time was to be in the area where the work is. Because whilst I'm at uni, I can still network, I can still go out and do jobs and get all the work in that. But university offers me that safety bubble that is offered to people when you're on student finance and you can't afford to move anywhere just like that. So if you use kind of university for more than just the degree, it's super helpful. You've got to utilize it as a kind of thing for networking, your social life as well. Because it's not all just about your academics, it's about who you know and being surrounded by people that will support you and help look after you and whatnot. And yeah, being in the right area. It's super crucial for at least the production side of things where I work is that it's so much more helpful if you are in the area within an hour's drive or whatever to any studio or location where you need to shoot. So for me, London was that place, and 3 years of university and student debt have kind of placed me here now.
Well, thank you. And what was what university did you go to, and what was your course, just so people know?
I went to the University of West London, studying film production. Um, a little bit of thought went into the kind of where I was going. I had a choice of three other universities, but when doing my research, I found that most of the studios that I wanted to work at and the work that was going was based in West London. So for me, it was a no-brainer. I just go to the University of West London, on the Ealing campus, which has the historic and famous Ealing Studios there as well. So yeah, I kind of chose my university based on proximity to where everything was.
Cool. I bet you met so many great people. And were you able to go to Ealing Studios as a visit in terms of?
I've been to Ealing Studios, yes, but not as part of a visit from the university. Trust me, I asked the university like how good are your connections with Ealing Studios? It's literally just down the road. Like there's no turns on the street or anything like that. You literally just walk further up the road and Ealing Studios right there. And I asked them, like, yo, can you help us get like traineeship placements, like work experience and whatnot? And the university said, no, we're not connected with them at all. And I'm not gonna lie, it felt like they didn't really try to kind of establish that connection with them, at least for on our end. So if you realize that your kind of institution that you're going to isn't helping you out as much as you can, it's kind of on you at that point to just make it work for yourself. Um, so I've been doing series based on work that I was able to get, but my university didn't really help with that opportunity. I ain't gonna give them the credit for it either.
Is that how you ended up working on Fantastic Beasts?
So actually, Fantastic Beasts was a work experience kind of program thing that I was able to find for myself. Um, they were shooting out in Leavesden in Watford, which is about an hour's drive away. And the kind of work experience I got on there was very interesting because we were up at 3:30 in the morning and getting back home around 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and then that doesn't really give you a lot of time to kind of do your life, the rest of your life stuff. Thankfully, it was only a few days a week, spread around here and there. Um, but as far as it comes to like grip training work, it wasn't kind of in the line of grip training work, but still, I was kind of getting myself into the environment where I could see everyone working in their departments and what they wanted to do and kind of figure out which direction I wanted to head in, which was really cool. And plus, it was Fantastic Beasts, the second one. Um, but yeah, I would do it again. Like I would recommend to everyone to kind of find the work as and where it's available, especially when you're in uni, because the networking at that stage is more important than the actual job itself sometimes, because a lot of the time it's about who you know, not necessarily what you know.
But you were a background artist, weren't you, on Fantastic Beasts, which was something that I'd never heard of and actually haven't actually, delved into deeper in terms of knowing what that role is. Obviously there are transferable skills within that, and it was like you grabbed at an opportunity to get work experience and,
Yeah, so my time as a background artist was interesting because a lot of the time it's just really not related to the actual production itself. But I signed up to an agency and they were like, do you want to just be in this film? We need background people, we need supporting artists. Um, and I was like, hell yeah, I'll be in a feature film. Why not? Um, the thing with that is like you got to tame your ego. You're not going to have your big break being some person that walks across the background in a film and think, oh yeah, this is my moment. Like tame your ego. You're there to either witness what professionals are doing, get paid, and kind of see what the lifestyle is about because it's a tough environment for a lot of people. Um, Especially on high-end productions where you're starting work very early and you're finishing often quite late. And then within those times as well, you've got to drive home or take public transport home, like the bus or the train or whatever. So doing that and balancing uni at the time was tricky. But for me, I spoke to my lecturers. I was like, look, I'm not going to be in a lot, but trust me, I'm going to work within the exact same industry. So they were fine with that generally, especially when I'm the one paying the course and they're not doing it for free. But yeah, it was interesting to kind of witness that. And at that point, I kind of definitely knew that, yeah, this is the kind of environment I want to be in, I want to work in. Because for me, it was the ever-changing nature of every day, changing from scene to scene, location, changing sets and whatnot. Respect to everyone that does an office job is something I couldn't do. So uh, going onto set, even as a background artist, and realizing that this is the environment you want to work in, and this is the kind of people I want to surround myself with, was super helpful for me in deciding that I actually, yeah, this is the direction I'm heading in, and I haven't made a mistake at the moment.
Bro, amazing. Yes, so Harry's just put in the chat what a background artist is, but for those who will be seeing this recording, are you able to just explain what that role is and kind of what your duties were, just in terms of your work experience, if that's all right?
Yeah, background artists are like the supporting artists that you see in the backgrounds of films that aren't the main actors. They're the people that walk down the street, the people that serve the actors, their props or their food if they're in a restaurant or anything like that. They are everyone else that fills out the scene. And they're more important than a lot of people give them credit for because without them, your actors are in an empty hall talking to only two other people across the way, and then it doesn't make sense. Um, your streets are completely empty. You're in the case of Fantastic Beasts, we were in the scene at the end where it's like Grindelwald giving his speech to all of his followers. Now, without essays and all that, he's talking to like three or four people in a very large empty room. So yeah, the essays aren't given the credit that they always deserve, but they're given roles and whatnot. They say move from point A to point B, do this, express this way. You can get a little bit of acting in there if you know you're slightly closer to the camera. Um, but yeah, they're managed by the AD team as well. Like you'll generally liaise with floor runners, second AD, no, third ADs, crowd ADs, and whatnot. Sometimes the first AD will, or the director himself will come up to the crowd and be like, right, this is the scene, this is what's happening. Yeah, just do that. And oftentimes you'll arrive on set, you'll go through the check-in and all that, and then you have to go straight to costume. You'll be fitted for your costume and then planted in one, and then that's your costume for that scene at least. And then you just kind of wait to be called on set, and then the ADs and then that will kind of direct you and arrange you in certain positions or what directions to go or what actions to take. And then you do rehearsals. You do no, they'll do a block and they'll do a crew rehearsal, and then they'll do like everyone rehearsal, and then they'll go for a take. So you're generally not always being brought on without knowing what the hell you're doing. It does happen every now and again, but most of the time you just kind of follow your directions and it should be fine. And at that point, like if you have downtime between takes or between scenes and the crew is kind of intermingling and waiting on whatever it is that they're waiting on, you can chat to a couple of them if they're like nice enough. Like don't if you're being an SA and you want to work in film, don't approach someone who is obviously busy. That is a huge red flag because you obviously can't read when someone's busy and when they're not. But yeah, if someone's willing and happy to talk to you about stuff, by all means, like just don't approach someone who's busy. That's my biggest, I guess, pet peeve when it comes to that.
Oh, thank you. And then that kind of leads, so obviously you've learned etiquette in terms of integrating and communicating and, working with others on set. Like, are there any skills that you learned and just any skills in on-set etiquette that you learned through that experience that you've been able to take through into your role as Grip?
Um, yeah, there are some. I'm not gonna say it's the biggest crossover, but there are certainly things that you can kind of gather from doing background and essay work. Mainly, it's sticking to a schedule and forcing yourself to wake up super early in the morning and going to bed late at night because there are like early starts. When I'm working as a grip, often I'll be waking up at 4:30, 5 a.m. to kind of make it into work, drive, and make sure I'm there on time and make sure everything's prepped and whatnot. And the same kind of applies for background artists and essays when if they've got pre-call and they need to get into costumes and whatnot, um, then yeah, they'll also have to wake up early and make sure they keep to a schedule and whatnot. Because if you're late or you don't show up to work, they often do not ask you to come back unless they are super nice about it or you have a very good reason why you weren't there. And waking up late or sleeping through an alarm is never an excuse in film or outside of work or outside of film, like anywhere. Wake up on your first alarm is generally my best suggestion. Other skills, it's another one that a lot of people don't take into account is socialness and your ability to communicate with others and take direction. Because I think, especially going forward now, like people, a lot of people, younger people, especially me at the time, I had a problem with like focusing on multiple tasks at once and kind of organizing myself and getting into my head like what needed to be done and what can I do to help out more. Essays, you don't have so much to do, but you do have to take direction. You do have to remember what you're doing and coordinate it with everyone else on set and whatnot. And being social and talking to each other is very important because it's your own health. It's if you're more of an introvert and you don't like talking to so many people, you still need to talk to someone. But if you are like extroverted and whatnot, talking to people is and communicating with them and getting to know who they are and what they do and understanding their roles better is super helpful when it comes to working and navigating your way through the industry. So I'd say the two mo most important skills that you get from essay work is generally timekeeping and schedule keeping and your social skills as well.
Yeah, thank you. So that kind of leads into what you do now as a profession, Jordan. So are you able to explain like the heads of departments on set and how you interact with them as your role as grip, if that's okay?
Yeah, absolutely. So depending on what size of production you're on, the grip team will also vary in size. Let's say on a high-end production, like I did in my first training job for No Time to Die, we had the whole shebang. We had a key grip who is the head of the department. He's in charge of everyone. He's generally the most qualified. Um, they will organize the grips and what shots they need to get ready or what shots they need to prepare. Um, yeah, they're the most experienced ones. Then you've got your best boy who or best girl who is the right hand of the key grip. They deal with all the scheduling. They'll deal with um, liaising with the rest of the team. They'll deal with hiring equipment, future planning, letting the key grip know that certain pieces of equipment are in, certain bits are out, and scheduling ahead of time so everything runs smoothly. Because if it, especially on the higher end productions, if the key grip was left to do everything on set and then as well as all the paperwork that follows it, he'd have no time and the job would not get done. So best boy very important on those higher scale productions. And then below the best boy, you'll have your grips and your techs as well. So your grips are the people that kind of deal with the camera movement, positioning, rigging, whatnot. They'll have a team as well. They'll have the A camera team, and if there's more than one, then they'll have a B camera team as well. And they'll stick with their teams, kind of helping position the camera in various locations around the set. And the techs as well, they they have a more specialized role within it. Like you'll have a crane tech who is in charge of looking after the very, very expensive equipment for the cranes and telescopics and whatnot to ensure that it runs smoothly and runs properly. And they're dedicated to that role. And then you'll have people that are like head techs, which deal with the running of the remote heads that you see. Sometimes on BTS, you'll see operators using wheels and whatnot to kind of pan or tilt or roll the head of the camera at the end of a crane because obviously you can't get an operator up there all the time. So a remote head is just there to kind of point the camera, and it's super fun to play with when you're not going for a take. And then below them, you'll have the grip trainee, which is yeah, just generally the entry level position. You'll be assisting the grips in setups. You'll be running kit back and forth. You'll look after them. You've got to make sure you get your coffees and waters and teas and all that. It sounds like a runner, but it's part of the job. And you'll be learning as well. You've got to ask questions to your grips and best boy and key grips, like when the time is appropriate. You'll be taking notes. You observe, and you're like a sponge. You're just there to kind of soak up information and disperse it when you need to.
Cool, thank
I think we'll see on screen here as well. You've got your different qualifications as well. So at the top, well, let's start at the bottom. You got your trainee level, which is you're there in the job. You don't need to be qualified in doing anything. You just need to be on set and have the right attitude and enthusiasm for it. And then above that, you'll have branch assess groups, which is where I am right now, where you have been doing the job for a few years and you're confident enough to kind of go and take an assessment with the union so that they can say, yeah, this guy knows what he's doing, at least as far as this goes, um, with regards to setup and safety and rigging and building equipment. And then after that, you'll have your MVQ2, which is the next level that I'll end up going for, hopefully within a few years. And then you've got your MVQ3. I could go into the details of what each of those means, but you don't need to know all that until you're actually kind of working your way up the grip ladder.
Oh, thank you. So are you able to, obviously I know you've touched upon it just briefly in terms of like what a grip trainee does. So in 2019, you were a grip trainee, weren't you? Was that on, and that was on No Time to Die, wasn't it?
Yes.
Right. And obviously that was through the BFI Film Academy Future Skills placement. Um, and was it your second time apply, like successfully getting onto the Future Skills trainee program?
Yeah. Yeah. So the first time I applied was actually at the start of university, towards the start of my university. It was that one was for the solo Star Wars film at the time. And I applied for that, and they said to me like, "It's probably better if you finish your education, go through university and whatnot." I was like, "Please, no! I want to do film more than I care about going to university. Like that's why I was there." But I think they did the smart thing and said, "Give it a couple of years, finish university, um, and then apply again when you're not committed uh, to education," which in hindsight was probably better at the time because I was able, within the time between applying, I was able to make friends, establish myself, kind of a base to work from, like, and a place to live, basically, and a job that kind of paid the bills, and then you can apply for it. And when I applied for it, it was towards the end of my third year, and it was almost perfectly timed because we had our last university sessions, and then like the next week, I was being brought onto the film. Um, so yeah, I forgot what the question was. Sorry.
No, that's fine. It was just so obviously, how old were you in 2019, Jordan, if you don't mind me asking?
Ooh, do I reveal that? I was 23 at the time.
Cool. So as a 23-year-old on like their first, I would like it's like official placement scheme.
Yeah.
What did, as a grip trainee, like what did that look like for you in terms of turning up to set every day, a schedule? Who did you respond? Who is responsible for you? Who did you connect with and communicate with?
Right. Yeah. So going, starting your first ever job as a grip trainee, admittedly at the time, I really did not know what to expect or what was going to happen between each day because I'd never worked crew in that kind of environment before. And usually a lot of people start out kind of working like TV or low budget films and whatnot, but jumping straight into the most expensive production in the UK at the time, it almost felt a little bit overwhelming, but you have to tell yourself that you earned your place there. And if you because you've earned your place there, you know you have the kind of work ethic and dedication and the gumption to kind of go and get it done. So I would go in and go over to the grip department or the grip truck, wherever that was parked at the time. I'd liaise with the team, ask them, is there anything I need to prep, anything I need to get ready for the scene? Often they would tell us, yeah, we're shooting in this stage right now, so we just need to move all the gear over there. So I give them a hand with that. And then uh, Before that, I take everyone's coffee order, and at the time it was a team of 12 or 13 people that I had to run and get coffees for. So got to make sure I'm the first in line at the coffee for that because on a production like this, there are hundreds of people that want their coffee in the morning, and if you're the first one there, your team is the most happy to start. Um, so that was a regular occurrence. And then throughout um, shooting up until lunch, you kind of get into grips with how things are running, who needs what piece of equipment in what location. You'll have a radio in your ear that tells you that people will communicate with you on, like, Jordan, I need this slider over in this position over by the waterfall or whatever it is, or I need an Apple box somewhere else, or can we lend someone this bit of equipment? So in a larger team like that, on a large production, generally you'll mainly liaise and chat to the people within your department because in that one it's a team of 12 people, so there's plenty of people to talk to there. And then because we work closely with the camera department as well, we'll often interact and liaise with them as well. I I got to know the camera team quite well because yeah, just because we crossed paths so much, and I got friends with the other trainee that was also on the scheme, and we chatted about our jobs and um, what was easy, what was hard, and whatnot. So there is time to actually like interact with other people and be somewhat social. It shouldn't be on working time, but yeah, you get your opportunities to kind of talk, and then when it comes to lunch. You got to take everyone's lunch order down and make sure you're again the first person in line to drop all the orders into the kitchen because you only get about an hour or so for lunch. And if you don't get the lunch quickly, your team are not super happy about that. So you got to make sure you get everyone's lunch and get you the order right. If people have allergies and whatnot, you've got to write that down. Make sure you ain't going to accidentally kill someone with like a nut allergy or anything like that. And then hopefully when you get through lunch, you get back to it. You get back onto shooting the scenes and helping out with the setups and whatnot. Um, and then it comes to the end, once you've done the several hours shooting after that, it get towards the end of the day and you got to check with your team, like, right, are we here? Are we in the same set or location tomorrow? What do we need to pack down? What needs to be put back onto the truck? Are we moving locations entirely? Do we have to move everything over there? Is that how much are we gonna do before wrap and after wrap? Because the grip team I was working with were super efficient in kind of getting things done. And like you're not getting paid after a wrap time a lot of the time. So the quicker you get stuff put away, the quicker you can go home and relax. So towards the end of the day, it feels like a bit of a rush or a bit of a crunch to kind of get all the stuff done, but you'll be much happier for it because once the work is done, you can go home and relax and decompress or do whatever you need to do.
Great, thank you. And then in terms of like how many were in your department? Like how many people were in there? Like how many were there any other trainees? Were there any grips and techs? Were there best boys?
Yes, so for No Time to Die, we had the key grip, David Appleby, a legend who's worked through many productions, many years, and done so many films that I'd watched growing up as well. So it was really cool to kind of interact with him and pick his brain. Then you've got the best boy, Jim Crowther, who was the right-hand man and the person I kind of chatted to most when it came to getting the job and applying for the grip trainee program. Then you've got your A camera grip and B camera grip, who were helpful and understand how green I was at the time when it came to uh, the the general department. And whenever I asked them a question, they were totally fine with answering it, and they knew I wasn't born knowing everything about it. Then every now and again we had a C camera grip come in, but they weren't a regular appearance because you don't always have a C camera on a production. So then we had the head techs. We had two head techs in charge of remote heads. We had a crane tech who was in charge of obviously the large telescopic cranes that do all the sweeping and high movements around a lot of the locations. And then we're also kind of partnering up with the standby crew, which will be standby carpenter, standby rigger, and my mind is blanking on the last one. But yes, we had a bunch of standbys on our team as well. And then once we got into the full swing of production, we also had two other trainees, and then myself included. So there was a lot of people to kind of move around and talk to and understand how everything was kind of working together. And the two other trainees as well. One of them was a bit more experienced than me. The other one had kind of jumped on as well at the same time. And yeah, we just got through the production and with about 12 or 13 in total, I'd say, on any given day.
Cool. And how long were you on the placement for, Jordan?
I believe I was on it for 6 months, which was quite intense at the time because that's 6 months, 5 days a week, waking up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., going to bed at um, 10 or 11, like late-ish. It was early at the time. And doing that for 6 months from, I want to say, March, May, like late May, early June, up until whenever 6 months after that is.
Yeah, sounds great though. Harry, are you able to put the slide up that Jordan made, please?
Yes.
So, do you want to explain the left-hand side and the right-hand side of the?
So yeah, on the left-hand side, we've got the entire crew photo. That was the one taken at I think on the last day, in which they just call everyone from every department, and they say, right, everyone gather around. We're going to take a picture, and if you've seen the film, you might recognize this set from when um, James Bond goes to Cuba and meets up with another agent played by Ana de Armas, and they have the whole shootout there. This was a really cool set to kind of work on because it's enormous. It's bigger, it's larger than life, and obviously you could tell a lot of money's gone into it. And because like the 007 name is important to the British culture, they've got to do a lot of things practically, and they built a lot of the sets and yeah, it was really cool to walk around. Bonus points if you can find me in somewhere in that crowd because I can't even remember where I was stood. But yeah, there's pretty much every department in that picture. And then the picture on the right there, you'll see me awkwardly kind of watching the hair and makeup trainee Alicia shake hands with, at the time, Prince Charles, but the King now. And that was kind of brought forward by the BFI as well, because a lot of funding comes for the trainee program comes from the BFI, which is also supported by the royal family. And they came in, yeah, we chatted a little bit, shook hands, and took some publicity photos, which were really cool. But yeah, that was a unique experience 'cause it's not often that you are working on a film and then royalty visits. And as far as I know, it doesn't happen a lot.
No, I don't think it's happened on all of the placement schemes. And then how many other trainees were there with you, Jordan?
Um, how many other trainees? I can't remember off the top of my head how many exactly, but there was one for every department, like within um within the makeup film. And you name a department, there's probably one of the trainees on there. We had obviously grips, then we had camera, you had the video trainee, you had sound, VFX, hair and makeup, costume, production, art. I'm probably missing a couple, but yeah, there was a trainee for every department. I'd say there's roughly 13 or 14 of us, I want to say. I might have I might have fudged the numbers on that. There's a picture somewhere I think I'll find at some point, and that will have the definitive amount of people on it, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
No, that's fine, don't worry. It's just yeah, it just might be a bit helpful to know that there are other training opportunities, like there are other roles and departments available. Um,
Yes.
so let's move on. So Harry, I was just wondering if you could go to the next slide, please, if that's okay. Fab. So yeah, so we've gone through the hierarchy of the grip department and where you were and kind of now where you're progressing to. Are you able just to give a quick overview of like how long it takes to get to key grip, like between like how long does it take for you to get from a trainee to a grip and best boy key grip in the same?
Um, so yeah, the thing about that is that it's not there's no definitive time to do that. It really depends on how confident you are and how skilled you are and how much exposure you have to the department. Because I've known grip trainees start at like sometimes 16 or 18 years old, and then within a few years, because they got into the game early and they have like the right team around them, they'll be a grip by the time they're like 23, 24, which is only just when I started, which is only a few years after that. So that I think they kind of estimate that it take you roughly 3 or 4 years as a trainee, rough estimate, before you're ready to kind of take your assessment. And then as a grip, you can choose whether or not you take an MVQ or not. But it's definitely helpful if you do, because it's just kind of this qualification that says, yes, I know what I'm doing. I'm qualified for that. But from grip training to grip, probably take about 3 or 4 years, sometimes faster, sometimes longer. And then from grip to an MVQ to level grip, probably take roughly about the same amount of time, depending on how quickly you get your paperwork done and how confident you are with your assessment. And then obviously the next level after that, same story. You gotta do your research. You gotta get your experience using certain items of like cranes and car rigging and whatnot, and then you'll be there. But there's no definitive set time for each role. It really does depend on your attitude and how on the ball you are with that.
Cool, amazing. So yeah, that's really helpful to know. So in terms of like role specific equipment, for those who are unfamiliar, are you able to walk us through like the key tools or technology used, and like how you manage these to make sure that they stay nice and shiny and safe?
Yes, I think if we go to the next slide, we'll have a list there. Yes. So the main things that we'll end up using, in an ideal world, is usually a dolly and track, and then you'll have your cranes and jibs, which are very expensive and very fun to use, and they get great shots, but they're not on every job. Then you'll have like sliders, which is exactly what it says. You put your camera on the slider and it moves from side to side, sometimes up and down, depending on how you orientate it, or back and forth. But yeah, then you'll have your sticks, legs, or tripod, which is all the same thing. It's just kind of the jargon for it, which is the the tripod that you mount the camera on. And then you'll have your and the last bit is the heads and mounts and what the camera is attached to between whatever else is underneath it. So you'll see on the picture on the left there, you've got the camera on top, and then directly underneath that, you've got everything that I deal with, which is the fluid head. Then you'll have the slider underneath that, and then you'll have the dolly underneath that. So I'm the one who has to kind of deal with all that and put all that stuff together so the camera can just go on top. So if you want to kind of simplify it, grips is everything from the camera down is what we deal with.
Brilliant, thank
Um,
you. Yeah.
yeah, and then on this kit as well, we've got kind of more examples of like specialist items and whatnot. On the far left, we've got the circle track that I set up last year with uh, another grip that I've worked with regularly. So we can get this kind of psychedelic, crazy shot of this old lady sat on the dolly as well, spinning around a pier and having a moment is as much as I think I can say. Then next along you've got an arm rig, which was a really cool piece of kit from Feral Equipment. Is It's literally just the rig that kind of attaches to someone's arm, and you've got to position the camera to anything that they're looking at, and the camera will move with them. I'm sure, like if you're in tune with social media and films and whatnot, you would have seen the shots where someone moves their arm and the camera moves with them, which is really cool. The one after that is it's a bazooka setup for a dolly. They're not super common in terms of regular dollies and whatnot. But this one will mount to the center of a flatbed dolly and kind of give you the kind of working space around it. The picture for me mainly was just so I know how everything goes back into the box, which is kind of which is a useful tip for anyone who is looking to get into it. If My first bit of advice is when you open a box and it's got all this kit laid inside, take a picture of it because then when you're putting it away, you just look at the picture and you know where everything goes. You don't have to do a guessing game. And I wish I'd learned that trick sooner because the amount of times I've been chewed out for not knowing how things go back is a little bit embarrassing. But yeah. And then the last slide there just kind of got like we've got a jib on there. I think it's the IntelliJib that we were working with on a film last year. It's just to kind of get the high angle shots that kind of add that dynamic movement that you'd want from a scene that kind of help ups the feeling of the production value. So you can have lots of films that are just shot tripod leg slider and the height rarely changes and whatnot. But when you add things like a jib arm or a crane, it just adds that extra element that um, cinematographers love. It's just kind of depth within the scene and within shooting and movement that um, feels more motivated, and you can get through a scene. And I could go on a whole tangent about like dynamic movement in that and whatnot. But yeah, trains, jibs, track, and all that dollies we deal with. And specialist arm rigs. We also deal with the specialist body rigs as well. If you ever see one of the shots where the camera is like directly in front of the actor's face and then they're moving around the scene, we'll deal with those as well.
Cool. So like, what do you, obviously, you wake up in the morning, whatever time that is, whether that's like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, you get ready, you get dressed. Like, what do you have like a set work uniform, that you like to wear, whether that's like Carhartt trousers with those are pockets, or for like, storing things, or do you have like a to-go bag with you with like or like screwdrivers or just tape or whatnot? Like how do you
Yeah.
prepare for the day?
Right. So yeah, generally there is no set uniform for anyone working in production. Although the general rules and etiquette is that you wear stage blacks so that the light doesn't reflect off you so much. And generally, if you're working in a more technical role, shorts or trousers with loads of pockets on them, like cargo shorts, cargo trousers, great because you can keep loads of little bits and bobs with you on your person. So whenever you need to pull them out, it's right there. At the moment, I use a tool belt. I use a tool belt just to kind of hold a few extra things for me because I'm not a huge fan of wearing the chest pouches that a lot of people do wear. But like chest patches are super helpful as well because if you ever need like a tape measure or tape or spirit level or anything like that, it's generally all going to be here. Any bigger bits of kit you'll keep in like in a floor bag or a tool bag nearby. Usually at the kit dump, which is where the rest of your equipment will be and whatnot. But for me at the moment, I've got a tool bag that I kind of carry around everywhere with me. Even on days off, it just stays in the car. So just so I know that whenever I go out to work, it will always be there in the car with me, and I wouldn't have forgotten it. Always got to make sure I've got my spirit level for whenever we're using dolly and track because a large part of what we do is making sure that the camera plane is always level and always balanced, unless specifically asked otherwise. So yeah, just got to make sure everything's level and everything's generally quite safe because if you're working on slants and slopes and whatnot, and you don't have a spirit level, best of luck with you for making sure that's safe and getting that track level.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, because I know that the rest of the talks I think it's quite interesting how like I think for props and even for locations and lighting and makeup, how everyday items are integral
Yeah.
for obviously.
Yeah, definitely. Like one of the mo most important things you can carry on you is like a Leatherman or a multi-tool because you never know when you're just going to need to like cut a bit of rope or screw something in, especially ones with like the removable screw pieces because you'll have your flatheads, Phillips heads, and then like your Torex and your hex screws as well. And if you can just whip one of those out whenever someone needs one, you'll help everyone save so much time. So multi-tool is definitely useful. Tape measure. Um, the things I keep mostly on me is a multi-tool, a set of Allen keys for assembling and disassembling kit. Just like tape measure for measuring distances of how far a bit of track needs to go or how far away the camera is from the subject. Um, what else? You keep your radio on you at all times, of course. And I keep a few little wedges, finger wedges like this one. Keep that on set with me because, yeah, it looks really like small and insignificant, but using one of these to help just level anything at a moment's notice, just like that, is surprisingly useful on a film. And it wouldn't even necessarily just be camera that needs your help. It would be sometimes it'll be art or props or anything like that that kind of need your help in steadying something on set, like if a table is wobbly or if an actor is not quite tall enough to fit within the kind of shot that we want, they'll come to the grips and be like, right, what can we do to kind of help with this? So having all those little tools on you will certainly assist in completing the shots. There are a few other things as well that you can kind of keep close and nearby, but if I go on a tangent about those, then we will be here for a long time.
Thank you. And you've just briefly mentioned that you liaise between not only just camera, which is obviously the most connected department to you, but also, art department. Is there another department or an individual which obviously you have to liaise and communicate and have an appreciation and understanding of what they do?
Yeah, for sure. So you got camera, you've got art and costume and whatnot, but another one that you don't always think of a connection to is sound because if you're pushing a dolly through a scene or if you're in a position where you have to be moving through a scene, you obviously have to take into account how much noise you're making because the sound department's microphones will pick up everything. You cannot talk badly about the sound department if they're on set because they will hear you at some point. So um, yeah, you got to liaise with them about how much noise is being made or what position you're moving to. And sometimes if the camera team are too busy, they can talk to you and be like, all right, where's the edge of frame? Where is safe for me to hold a boom and whatnot? Or if they need our assistance in kind of raising themselves up, they'll ask us for an apple box and whatnot to help them move into an easier position as well. We also help set up a lot of like we can assist with lighting as well if they need us to assist them with like either carrying something or helping rig something to scaffolding above. Often they'll have their own dedicated rigger, but sometimes they just need like a little bit of kit from us to kind of help position a light or a flag in the right position. So we generally chat to or at least interact with everyone on set at least a couple times a day, mostly with camera, but then everyone else gets their own love in their own special way.
What's a flag for those who don't know?
So a flag is something that essentially just blocks light. So you'll have your lights like that one behind me, and then if you want to flag up something using this notebook, it will help block the light you see from the edge of my face right there. So yeah, it's literally a flag is just a bit of black fabric or anything like that, just blocks light.
Well, and Harry and I have just been chatting behind the scenes because I know that you've created a slide with grip companies to share. Do you want to go through them and like give a bit more information?
Yeah. So with the grip companies and whatnot and the rentals, this is just a quick list that I kind of threw together. This is and it's by no means every company that exists out there, but I haven't got time to write all those down. But these are a lot of the main ones that I've worked with as well, that will supply most of the grip gear on high-end TV and film productions that I've worked on, and also like short films and independents and commercials and whatnot that I've worked on as well. So they're happy to help out wherever is needed. And um, yeah, they'll supply cranes, they'll supply dollies, sliders, track, specialist rigs, car rigs, and whatnot. So if you're interested in gripping, these are the companies I would generally advise looking at. And if you have a bit of time as well, give them a call and be like, "Hey, can I come in and have a look around and see what you've got?" Like maybe practice with some of the kit as long as you know what you're doing. Or if you don't know what you're doing, you can always ask someone there if they can show you if they've got time and if they're free, because they are still working places. They don't just sit and wait for a call. They're always generally moving around. But yeah, a couple I've worked with recently, and I guess the most with is Independent Grip and Feral Equipment. Feral kind of generally specialize in like unique bits of rigging and kit and assistance. There was I uploaded a video to my story a couple of weeks ago of a Cineteca Neutron Arm, which is this crazy contraption crane. I don't know how the hell it works and whatnot, but they've got the only one in the country at the moment, I believe. So when I found that out, I gave them a call. I was like, "Can I come in and just play around with it, see what's going on?" And they're more than happy for anyone interested in it to kind of come in and experience the gear and experiment and figure out what it does. So yeah, and you got a lot of the big names as well on there because Arri, Panavision, and whatnot. They don't deal with just grips as well. They deal with camera, and a lot of them deal with lighting as well. So yeah,
Well, thank you. And Harry, would you mind stop sharing, please, just for a moment? Thank you. Um, so Jordan, I forgot to ask, obviously you've been a trainee and your first big break, let's say, was No Time to Die. But obviously you've worked on a video game, you've worked on a commercial, you've worked on a comedy, you've worked on a comedy set. Like, are you able to describe how your responsibility and duty changes on those kind of low to high, yeah, what they're called,
yeah,
low
yeah,
to
absolutely.
high.
So obviously working on like a high-end film like No Time to Die, you've got every toy you can play with there, like, and you've got every department, and it will be as kitted out as it can be. But when you move to productions like TV and independent films and whatnot, you obviously your arsenal is going to be often greatly reduced because of budget or skill levels and whatnot, or just the needs of the director and DOP. But for things like music videos and whatnot, it's actually, generally for everything, like the responsibilities of grip are relatively similar because grips on those smaller productions are generally a luxury because um, any person in the camera team can set up a tripod and a slider and whatnot, and then just leave it at that. But if you actually want someone who's dedicated in that role and will know how to do it exactly and perfectly mostly every time, you hire a grip in because I can go into a music video and they still want dolly and track and they'll still want sliders and a jib and whatnot to kind of create the dynamic movement that you get within the scenes and whatnot. But really going from high end to low end, I don't know, low end or lower budget stuff, the responsibilities stay similar. It's just about the kind of kit that you are given to kind of play with, whether it's a small amount or a large amount. Um, but most of the time, we deal with safety. We just got to make sure everything that the camera team are doing is relatively safe and it's not going to hurt anyone and not get anyone injured. That's the thing that stays consistent throughout any production is that grips are there to make sure that the camera is safe and that the team is safe and that the actors and everyone is generally safe and nothing's going to happen. Like if you've got mad stunts going on that day, that responsibility is someone else's. They'll have a stunt coordinator and the stunt team will be debriefed and everyone will know what's going on. But in the average day-to-day running of like a production like music video, commercial, video game or TV or film, I think I said this. Yeah, the job stays the same. You were there to keep things safe and you were there to help the camera be in position and whatnot.
Cool, thanks. And I assume that a lot of call times and wrap times are kind of similar depending on it being like the House of Dragon or James Acaster's upcoming comedy special.
Yeah. So with call times, you will often get pre-calls on large productions because there is so much stuff to move around. The average call time, I believe in the UK, is around 8 a.m. So you have to make sure you are there before that because if you're arriving to work at 8 a.m., you're late. You are very late because you haven't got the time to do any of your prep or get ready for the day. So I generally always aim to be there about half an hour or 15 minutes early, depending on the shoot. But often you'll have to check your call sheet, make sure you read through it thoroughly, and check that if there's a pre-call, what time is that pre-call and who needs to be on it? Because not every department needs to be on a pre-call. And often pre-calls would be roughly about an hour before the call time. So you have to take that into account when it comes to your schedule the next morning, because obviously if you're waking up at 6 a.m. to get into work for 8 a.m. or half seven at least, and you've got a pre-call, you have to shift that time back and wake up earlier. It's quite like that. And the wrap time, it also depends on the kind of shooting day that you're doing. Now you've got continuous working days, which are roughly 9 hours without pre-calls, and you'll be uh, yeah, you'll be wrapping after 9 hours from the start of shooting, and often you don't get a lunch break within that time. You've then got a semi-continuous working day, which is 10 hours with half an hour break for lunch. And then you've got your standard working day, which is 11 hours with an hour for lunch. So you're working a 10 plus one. So your wrap time varies from like 5, 6, or 7 o'clock on average. So obviously, if you're starting later, like say if you're doing a night shoot, you'll probably start around 4, 5 in the afternoon, and then go until like 3 in the morning.
Real lovely. Um, so obviously you have a lot of responsibilities and commitment, but obviously a lot of passion. So I was wondering, Jordan, are you able to share like what the importance of having passion, like, sorry, what is the importance of passion in your work? And like how does creative passion help you thrive in challenging environment, like just in challenging general work life?
Yeah, so with grips, like we're there to kind of help the ultimately help the director, sorry, the director and DOP kind of express their vision as well. There are points in which you can make suggestions and whatnot to how a setup should be done, or perhaps even what a setup can look like and camera position and whatnot. Because for me personally, I have a passion for the visuals of a film. Like, if a film looks very painterly and the movement through it is great and smooth and everything just works really well, that's more me. So you can get quite creative with how you build a setup or how you kind of offer up a shot to a director or a cameraman or DOP. It's not always the case that they don't know what they're doing. Of course, like you're working with very experienced people, but sometimes they'll take your suggestions on board and they'll take your experience level into account. Because I've had a few shoots where I've joined and I've had more on-set experience shooting complex setups and high-end film than the DOP or the operator or the the director. So I can make my suggestions there. Like perhaps if we start here and end there, that might help you get what you want. But you really have to read the room on that. You can't just be throwing out suggestions like you are one of the creative leads on it. But yeah, like for me, I have a passion for generally working with my hands and working with my body. I'm not so much about working on paper or a laptop and whatnot. My passion kind of lies in physical kind of work and moving around. Um, and yeah, thriving because I love the environments as well that we work in. So getting to see other people be creative in that kind of industry, like seeing the art department build the most amazing and beautiful sets, seeing costume builds these intricate um, kind of details and level of um, costumes that they work on, whether it be sci-fi or a period drama. I get to see them be really creative. So my passion kind of lies in the whole craft of filmmaking and knowing that I'm doing my part to kind of contribute to it as well. And the fact that a camera can move smoothly through a scene with that steady cam or you can hit your mark perfectly is just it's what makes me happy. It's not for everyone as well because I know a lot of people kind of trying to work their way into the industry is like they feel like they need to take the most creative roles out there, like being a director, actor, or a cinematographer is obviously really cool and all that, but you still get like the creative outlets that you wouldn't expect from the departments that surround it as well.
Jordan, you've compiled three resources together, which for anyone who may be interested, is this what you use and you
Yeah, so unfortunately there aren't too many resources out there that you can read about gripping, because most of what we know is just kind of what you go and experience and what's passed on from person to person. But the grip book there by Michael G. Uva, it's got generally most of the kit that you'll use in there. Like it will have an amazing amount of detail about like the weight of certain piece of equipment, how big it is, that like the dimensions and whatnot, and how it all kind of fits together, and all the little technical aspects of like the equipment that we use, um, which is really useful if you're kind of if you're going onto a job and you're like, right, so this is the kit list. We've got these few things in here. One of those things that I haven't really got too much knowledge of, you can refer to that kind of book. There's a whole series of those books as well. I think that one's the first edition. But yeah, there's a whole range of those books, and you can just kind of flip through it and see, right, it weighs this much, it will achieve this kind of movement and this height, it's this big, etc. So at least you'll know when you arrive what you're looking for and what you're working with. In the middle there, we've got the Grips Branch website, which anyone can visit. It will have like a list of all the grips and technicians and whatnot that are at least covered by the union as well. They'll have information on safety and rates and whatnot. So generally, that's where you go to if you're taking gripping seriously, you'll go to the Grips Branch website and navigate your way around that. And then the last resource on there is Getting to Grips. Um, it's about the life and work of Dennis Frazier. Very old school grip, very legendary. He's been doing it since forever. The Frasers are very big in the gripping game as well and whatnot. And you can kind of go through that memoir to see how gripping started and kind of what it's become in a more modern day as well. So if you're interested about the lifestyle and whatnot of a grip, I would recommend this book.
oh, amazing. Harry, are we able to go on to the next slide as well, please? Because Jordan, you've again another great list of things that you've taken, that you've kind of taken from when you first started.
Is that the key things to remember when
Yeah.
starting? Yes. Yeah. So, like when you're going onto set and you're going into film and whatnot, I think a lot of uh, young guns in the game think, oh, I have to be the most knowledgeable person. I have to um, do X, Y, and Z to make sure I'm the best person on set ever and whatnot. And sometimes enthusiasm is great. We love enthusiasm for the craft and whatnot, but there's a certain level where it's like, look, don't don't jump the gun too much because ultimately when you're a grip trainee, safety first. Like if you don't know what you're doing and what you're handling and what you're carrying often as well, is that like safety is the number one important thing on a set because if you injure yourself or you injure someone else, that's a lot of that causes a lot of problems. It costs a lot of money and it can delay a lot of things, especially if you injure someone important. So safety first, take it slow. If you don't know what you're doing, don't touch it. Let someone else touch it. Let someone else deal with it, or at least get someone to explain to you how it's going to work. And yeah, the second point there, you're not born knowing this stuff. Because I remember going in early on my first job, it was like someone would ask me to do something, and then I'd be like, oh yeah, I can just figure it out. Why not? And it got to it, and I was like, Jesus, I have no idea what I'm doing here. And they were like, and the guy, I remember this. This guy said to me, look, you're not born knowing this stuff. Just ask questions. So yeah, like if you don't know something intuitively, just ask. It's the worst you can get is like I don't even know the worst you can get because usually the person will just explain it to you. That and there are a few stupid questions that you can ask like um yeah, if you're asking like, oh, what time's lunch and whatnot, that's a stupid question. You have the call sheet there. But if you're asking like, how much does this weigh, or is it safe to move that over there, or can I even experiment with this setup, or can I have a look through your equipment? They'll be like, yes, absolutely, go for it. Like, because any person that you're working with wants you to be as knowledgeable as you can be, so you can help them do their job. So like if you're afraid to ask questions, just pick the right time to ask a question, I would say. Um, because obviously don't hassle someone when they're busy or they're in the middle of something, or if they're talking to someone else about work and whatnot. Just pick your time and place and then ask questions as much as you can and make sure if you can't remember it, make sure you get it written down. Yeah. Um, with appropriate gear and clothing, like as we mentioned earlier, like generally on set and whatnot, wear your stage black so you don't reflect in light or you're not popping up suddenly in the background of a scene. But it also accounts for if your working environment as well, because sometimes you'll be working in the woods. You might need a pair of boots to kind of keep your feet and ankles like protected and whatnot. Sometimes you'll be working outside in the rain. So you'll definitely want waterproofs because there is nothing more miserable than going through a 10-hour shoot at night in the rain and you are wet because you forgot your waterproof jacket and your waterproof uh leggings as well, your leggings or trouser covers as well. So yeah, make sure if you know where you're going to work, wear the appropriate clothing and prepare for it because or even if you need to keep it in your car. I keep a pair of boots and my waterproof trousers in my car because at any point it can start raining if we're working outside. All I got to do is go and get changed or go put them on, and I'm sorted for the rest of the day. And as we've put in the chat, yes, for summer and whatnot, make sure that you are taking care of yourself. Sunscreen. You don't want to get burnt on one day and then spend the rest of the week a lobster that can't be even touched. So yeah, make sure you look after your skin and look after your health and whatnot. And this leads me on to my next point, your health and fitness. Production is a game where you are running around a lot. You are moving heavy bits of equipment. You are running back and forth between locations and sets. So it's important to stay on top of your health and fitness. It's not just with like a workout scheme, but also what you eat as well. Because on a lot of higher end productions, especially, it is very easy to help yourself to anything that Crafty can offer and whatnot. Uh, and it's just so easy to help yourself to it. Like you can just eat all day, but if you're not fueling your engine with like the right things like fruit, veg, protein, and whatnot, and you're just eating like pizza, chips, and whatnot, you're gonna burn out before you realize. So maintaining a relatively healthy diet, maintaining, I guess, a good workout and workout routine, as well as staying hydrated on set. That's a lot. That's one thing a lot of people forget. I just got off a film where, literally 2 days ago, where we realized halfway through shooting that, like, we haven't really had any water or had a drink yet because we're just kind of going through the shots and whatnot. So we're like, yeah, let's make sure everyone's got a round of water and drinks and whatnot because you got to stay hydrated, you got to stay healthy. So yeah, it's something that I think people neglect more than they realize. Not only on film, but also like in the working environment. Like if you're doing hospitality or anything like that, you got to look after yourself and stay fit. Um, Another thing I think I alluded to earlier when it came to the equipment, like take pictures where you can, because if you take a picture of like the kit before you take it out of the box, that works great because you know how exactly how to put it back. But then when you've got the setup as well, take if you can, and the set allows it, you could take a picture of that and you can revise over it later. Be like, all right, this piece of equipment fits to that because it achieves more height or lower height or whatever it is. You just take pictures of it and you can look at it later to remind yourself, oh yeah, that's how we did that shot. That's how we can do it again. This is how this rig comes together, etc., etc. Like take pictures where you can so you can just look back on them and whatnot. And then obviously when you're starting, you got to make sure you're social and that anyone that you talk to and communicate with generally just understands what you're talking about. Like you're not expected to know all the jargon and you're not expected to know all the lingo on your first job and whatnot. So ask questions if you don't know. But yeah, being social on set and talking to the people around you is super helpful because then you can kind of just you get an understanding of how other people work, what's kind of expected of them and what's expected of you and if you do not like talking to people and you don't talk on the radio, you might struggle a bit because it's a fast-paced moving environment a lot of the time. And if you're not up to speed or up to date on what's going on and whatnot, because you don't like talking to people or you're not listening to your radio and whatnot, that is it's a problem. It's a problem for you and it's a problem for everyone else. You don't want to be that person that wasn't listening or didn't relay information to someone else, and it's then your fault because you just you didn't stay on top of it. But also, with regards to like work and whatnot, it's just important as well to just be social because humans are inherently just social animals, and it keeps your mental health in check because you're not the only person on set going through the struggle and the difficulty that can often be occurred on set as well. Everyone else there is dealing with problems. So if you communicate your problems with them, at least someone knows what you're going through, or someone knows that you've had a great day, or someone knows that you've had a bad day. Just kind of talk to each other because you don't want to be those people that are just on your phones all the time. Like, all right, we're going for a take on your phone all the time. You just chat with the person next to you. It's important. It's healthy as well because the less time you spend on your phone and talking to people, I think the more rewarding in general that it will be.
Great, thank you. And then, so I know that you've made a final slide, because I know you've touched upon like work-life balance and personal interests, but I know that also you've made a slide about the realities of being a freelancer. So Harry, if you're able to put that up when you're ready, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. So on this, there are some bitter pills that a lot of people will have to kind of accept when it comes to working in freelance, because a lot of what we do within the production side of thing is based on a short contract basis. Like I can work a job for 3 months and then not work for 2 weeks, and then go on a job for another month, not work for a few days, and then whatnot. So you're not the work availability is kind of based on how much work is out there. Like at the moment, 2025, the industry is a little bit slow in getting started again, which it always kind of is during winter because how many productions want to shoot during outside in the cold during winter? Not so many unless you really need to. But yeah, the work availability, it really depends on what department you're going into, um, how many people you're kind of interacting with and talking about work, and the opportunities that are offered to you. Sometimes it's not always there. You can go 2, 3 months without anyone calling you for a job and whatnot. So you need to work that out and figure if before going freelance, if that's something you're comfortable doing, like not working for maybe 2 weeks or not working for a month and whatnot. It's not always there. Um, when it is there, it's great. And when you get a lot of it, it's great as well. But at that point, you also have to kind of figure out your work-life balance because um, if you love your job, that's great. You'll never work a day in your life. But then when you leave work, you have to make sure that you're still doing all the things necessary for you to kind of function properly, because otherwise it will just catch up to you. And that includes things like your own personal health care, um, getting a proper sleep routine, making sure that you're eating properly at home, or that your house is tidy, or that you're being social with people outside of work. Because uh, I myself as well have had it where I've been working a job for 6 straight months and I don't talk to any of my friends because I don't really have the time. And then when the job finishes, I'm out of the loop. I'm not keeping in check with what people are up to and whatnot. So and things have fallen behind as well, like doing the dishes, doing my washing, finding some clean clothes to wear, making sure like all my bills are paid, making sure like my dog is looked after and has the proper exercise and whatnot. So yeah, it somewhat takes a conscious effort to kind of make sure that you don't do too much of one and neglect the other. It's about, like I say, finding that healthy balance because as well, like you don't have to kill yourself for a job where they will replace you the next day, if you know what I mean, which is another bit of truth as well. If you do a bad job or you mess up on set, sometimes you can be told not to come back and you have to be ready for that. So making sure that everything at home is running smoothly so that everything at work can run smoothly is, I think, an underappreciated aspect of working freelance. But um, to tie into the work availability as well, you got to account for your finances. You've got to budget like everything that you're doing because you've got to be like, all right, my phone costs this much, my car costs X amount of money, then my rent, electricity bills, and you have to weigh that up when it comes to um, how much money you'll be getting from a job and whatnot. And sometimes you'll be earning good money and then you won't work for a month. So you have to be like, right, if I'm not going to work for a couple of weeks, how much money do I have until I really need to work again? So keeping on top of your finances, keeping in check with stuff, um, super important. Of course, everyone kind of considers that as the main thing, is that when you go into freelance, you're not on a salary anymore. Your money is not guaranteed because you work a job. Like I say, you can work, you can go for a month without working, and you'd be like, right, I need some money to come in. I need to budget some things. I need to cut some expenses out of my life to make sure I can afford to keep living where I am in London or Manchester or wherever you are. Staying on top of your finances, just I'm not saying like be super cheap with everything. You don't have to buy the cheapest things as well, just to make sure you kind of get through the day. But yeah, make sure you just manage your money and look after it well. Like take a quick budgeting or finance course like on YouTube or online that kind of brings you to the kind of understanding the basics of handling your money as well, because they'll get to a point if you're working freelance, you probably have to file your own taxes, have to do your own invoices, which sounds super boring, but it's stuff that comes with it as well. You've got to stay on top of it. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can get a real kick up the pants later down the line if you've let something slip without knowing about it. So yeah, money and this is a money game as well as a creative outlet as well because um certain projects will come along right, and they'll say, yeah, it's expenses only, or it's a passion project. We're not paying you, but you'll get paid in credits and food and whatnot, which you'll have to take into account because it might be a great project, but if it's not paying your bills and then another job will pay your bills, you've got to weigh that up. What's more valuable to you, the networking opportunity on a passion project or paying your rent that month? And I've had to unfortunately take some projects on that I was less than happy to, or that I wasn't as happy to take on, but they were paying quite well. I was like, yeah, I need this to, so I can pay my rent for the next 2, 3 months, so I can pay my electricity, buy food and all that. Because I jumped off a project that I was really enjoying. The team was great and the production was beautiful to kind of work around. But you know, it's the harsh truth of freelancing. You got bills to pay, and a low paying production that pays an exposure and credits and whatnot is not. And the council don't accept that. Your landlord's not going to accept that. Um, so yeah. Another point there as well. We've got mental health, and I think it's gaining more traction now. The kind of realization of mental health awareness and whatnot. It's especially within TV and film, because if you're going without work for 2 weeks or there are problems at home that can't be ignored and whatnot, staying on top of your mental health and that mental fortitude is, I'd say, arguably the most important, because if you're coming to work miserable every day, it's going to reflect in your co-workers and the work that you put in as well. It's like, why is this person so miserable all the time? And you'll talk to them and you find out, oh, they've got problems going on. And now I understand and whatnot. So communicating your issues is important, but staying on top of your mental health as well, I think, is underrated, especially when as the years goes on, like we're evolving into like kind of society where you have to be fast paced, you have to be the most resilient person going on, you have to have the thickest skin going. And it's just like, no, sometimes, take slow down a little bit, take some time for yourself, take some time to figure out what you need or what you want and what problems need solving, and focus on that for a little bit. Like, don't let it impede your work life by all means, but stay on top of what keeps you happy, and give yourself the reminders as to why you work hard, because part of keeping yourself in check is like doing the things that you enjoy as well outside of work, because you can love your job, but you will have tough jobs out there that make you just grit your teeth or ball your fists up, or sometimes even just cry in your car a little bit, which is super taxing on your body and your health and whatnot. So yeah, get hobbies, get creative outlets outside of work. Like, go for a run, go for a walk, go painting. Do whatever makes you happy, as long as you're kind of looking after yourself between work. And the last point as well is, like, it will say no guarantee. There is no guarantee that it will work out. And I think that's the hardest kind of thing that people um uh, kind of try and wrap their heads around when it comes to going freelance. There's no guarantee that it'll work. Like, fortunately for me, it's been working for the past 6 or so years, but there's no guarantee that it's going to work in 6 months or this time in 2026 or in 5 years. It's just something you kind of have to know going forward, that, yeah, this isn't permanent always. So there's no guarantee that you get work. There's no guarantee that this will work out. Sometimes you might just have to explore other options to kind of keep your head above water. But if you can make it work for you, that's great. Keep that ball rolling where you can.
Amazing, thank you. Um, got got quite a few questions, if that's all right, Jordan. We've got to kind of speedily get through them.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it. Sorry.
But thank you. No, 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 but thank you so much. It's been really, really great, and it's really given me a lot of insight into the world and department of grip. So Will has put, is it the grip's responsibility for setting gimbals and Steadicams?
Sometimes on the gimbal, but not a steady cam. So a steady cam operator will know how to balance and get that all ready for themselves. Like, that's their sole kind of role, is just to watch out for the Steadicam. For a gimbal, it depends on. the communication between the camera and the grips department. If the grips are in charge of a gimbal, then yeah, we'll set that all up. If a camera, if the gimbal is coming from the camera department, generally they will look after it. But at any point, at almost any given point, you're both kind of working together to just make sure that it's balanced and calibrated and moving in the right positions and whatnot. But Steadicam generally always left to the Steadicam operator. A grip can be there to assist them in their movement and kind of make sure they don't fall over or trip over anything or give them directions and whatnot. Uh, we call that a spot. So if you're spotting someone, you're just making sure that they're safe in whatever they're doing.
Cool. Just like in the gym.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So Cassie has put, is the call time when filming is due to begin? So then do you need to factor in the prep time before this yourself?
Yes, absolutely. So call time is when you are expected to be on set with everyone else. Like everyone's there. You either go through a rundown of what's going on in the scene that you're about to shoot, or what's going to go on throughout the rest of the day. Your prep time, it goes from department to department. So for me, if there is no pre-call or anything like that, or if we don't have to load any gear in, generally I'll try and get there about half an hour beforehand so I can get a bit of breakfast, so I can kind of read through the actions of the day, read through what scenes we're going through, and I can prep accordingly, like say, okay, in this first scene, we're going to need a dolly and track. So I'll take my time pre unit call to kind of get all that stuff ready so that when the call time comes and they say, right, this is the first shot, I can just whip that out straight away and I don't have to spend my time like, all right, it's going to take 5, 10 minutes to put it all together. Because if you work quickly, the DP will be super happy because then they can just focus on other things as well at the time. And if you work quickly and your setup's all done, you take a break. You can relax a little bit until everyone else is caught up with you.
Amazing, thank you. And Noah has put, at what point do you stop being hired to fill a role and then start being hired for your talent?
Ooh, that is a good question. Um, it's hard to say because as a group trainee, you kind of are there to fill the role of the trainee. You can have if you have a good relationship with the groups that you're working with and the team that you're working with, they will hire you back based on how easy you are to work with, how knowledgeable you are, how much you know. If you know like little tricks and whatnot to kind of make their lives easier and your job easier, you'll know it if you get back hired regularly. If but sometimes you are kind of being hired to fulfill the role. So if you're being called in on dailies and whatnot, then yeah, you are there to fill that role. And for those who don't know, dailies is just when you're not a permanent, you're not permanently contracted on a production. You're literally there brought for the day or 2 days or 3 days. That's all that means. So sometimes you are just kind of brought in to fill the role. If you're there for the whole job and you stay there for the whole job, you probably are talented and they will keep you for that, or you're at least cool to work with.
Excellent. Thank you for the
I hope that, yeah, I hope that answers
yeah,
it.
no, no, it did. It definitely did. And Will has put during takes, what do the grips do? What do you do when everyone's filming?
Depending on the set that you have during a take, if the grip is required to be on the dolly, you'll either be pushing the dolly back and forth, left and right, or jibbing up and down. You got to do that silently because the sound will pick it up. But if you're not on set, or if it's a small set or a close set, you just go and take five whilst they're shooting the scene. And you got to be on point. You got to make sure, all right, they're finished with this shot. I need to go in there now and de-rig everything and get ready for the next thing, or just move it over. But some of the stereotypical things is that the grip will go and make a fart noise like somewhere in the background so that no one knows who actually did it. But most of the time, it's often grips. I don't do that professionally. But yeah, grips during takes. You're watching the scene. You're making sure that everyone's safe. You're making sure that the camera operator is in the position that it needs to be if there's a movement involved. Um, and you're observing, I guess, the safety of everything that's going on because it's also your job to make sure that the actors don't fall over your equipment or anyone else's equipment. You could say, watch out for that, make sure you stop. And there's a kind of fine line that you have to take where do I interrupt this take for the purpose of safety? And most of the time is yes. If someone's about to fall off an edge somewhere, they would rather you stop the scene than that person fall off something or something fall on someone or, someone gets injured. They would always rather you stop the scene because you can always go for another take. But if someone gets injured, you don't have that person anymore. So yeah, you're watching the scene, making sure everything's generally safe. You're watching the operator to make sure that they're getting what they want. Yeah. And if you're not on set, you're off set. You're either prepping something or waiting for the next take.
Cool. And then final question, if that's all right. It came from Anonymous. So is the job super technical and do they have to know a lot about technical aspects of filmmaking or be good at carpentry or like electrics, let's say?
Right, yeah. So yeah, generally it's quite technical. You're not always dealing with like digital kind of equipment or numbers and whatnot. Sometimes you are, sometimes you're not. It really depends on the kit that you're given. But you're more focused on building the rigs and assembling the tracks and putting the dollies in the right position and whatnot. With regards to carpentry, often you'll have what we call a chippy on set, which is the dedicated carpenter for things like art department or anything that the grips need. Like we work closely with the standby chippy because he's an extra pair of hands and he's there to kind of deal with all the woodwork. With with electricians, it's good to know that stuff. I'd say generally on a basis of working with film, but anything electricity based or to deal with that kind of thing is generally left to the sparks or the lighting department or the electrical department. Like they're all kind of the same, they're wrapped in the same label. So any electrician work, you just kind of leave it to them, unless it's specific to a piece of kit that you're using. Sometimes you'll ask them, "Can I?" You need a bit of power for the kit that you're using, so you go over to the electrical department. You'd be like, "Can I get a feed over to this piece of kit because I need power?" And that's all you have to ask them, and then they'll do their role and help you out.
Fab. And but maybe like before, obviously you got into grip. I think obviously you did have some knowledge about like cameras and you had a general consensus
Yeah,
idea of like yeah, cameras and sound and how a set work because obviously you did the film academy course and you were doing media at college, weren't you?
yeah, yeah, and it is useful to kind of know how everyone else is kind of working. Like the camera department um, is the most saturated department to go into after directing and producing, I think. So knowing how they work and how to communicate with them most effectively is super important. Knowing how the camera works. I don't have to know how a lens works or why the glass works the way it does or how the sensor works or all the digital stuff on the camera. That's not my deal. Sometimes it's useful to know if you're working with a less experienced team and you can just kind of offer little bits of advice and whatnot. But often that's left to them because you also don't want to tread on anyone's toes and telling them how to do their job. And that's, I think, important to bear in mind as well, is knowing your position, knowing their position, and respecting and trusting that they know what they're doing and that they will return that favor to you. So yeah, keep an eye on like other departments and how they work, and you'll just kind of be able to figure it out. Like I shouldn't get in that person's way. I can go and talk to them and ask them for any kind of problem solving that they might be able to help me with. So yeah, knowledge of other departments is generally super important.